It's waiting. All right, Isaiah, go ahead, intro.
All right, go. All right, what's up, THP String Squad? This is episode 30, big milestone. I think our original goal was to do an episode every day, so I think it's like about to officially be a month pretty soon. And today it's gonna be a pretty cool episode. We got Coleman Ayers. He has a YouTube channel. We're gonna put the YouTube channel link in the description. It's by Any Means Basketball. If you haven't checked it out, you need to do it right now. Like pause the video, pause the podcast, go on YouTube, go subscribe right now. He kind of does like basically performance breakdowns of different players. I've seen a few of the videos. They go super into I believe it's attention to detail, right? That's a really big, they're really big video. So if you're a hooper, go check it out. It's must watch. He's as obsessed with basketball and like the nitty-gritty like details of it as we are with jump training. So it's really dope. We're gonna be having some pretty cool discussions today, going into depth about who he is, how he got into basketball, all that stuff. So Coleman, if you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
So yeah, I'm Coleman Ayers. Like you said, I run By Any Means Basketball. So I started this when I was 16 years old, I believe, 17. Somewhere in that range. So pretty much my junior year of high school. It's a long story, so I'm not going to take valuable time away. But pretty much I started up with the intent of just focusing on the smallest details. So everything I do is science-based, detail-based, just really everything that the game of basketball involves. So skill training, performance training, nutrition, psychology, everything that you can imagine down to the scientific level. I try to really focus on that. And also make it digestible to guys who don't have a scientific background or who are just high school or college or even professional hoopers that don't really care about the science, but really just care about how they can get better as a hooper and make more money as a hooper, or dunk on people, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's really been my mission statement from the beginning. Started off just throwing up videos on YouTube when I was in high school, just because I needed a place to save them. They got some traction. And I started
playing guys. Anything or
yeah. So I played at St. John's College High School in DC. Had played with at least 11, 12 D1 guys there were on my team. So that was, I think we got number 5 in the country on some like Max Preps ranking during that I was playing there. So that's kind of where I learned to really appreciate great basketball and everything that goes into it. So that kind of set me off on that track. And from then I started training some guys that were on that team, got into that, loved it. And I had a couple opportunities to play D2, D3, but I decided to go to University of Miami, focus on my coaching because as anyone knows, it would be hard to juggle running an online and in-person training business while playing college basketball. So at University of Miami now, exercise science major, whatever that is, but most of my knowledge just comes from just studying this stuff since I was sophomore year in high school, 15 years old, just curious about everything that went into the game of basketball on a scientific level. So here I am now, and I'm gaining a pretty good following. Trained a ton of guys in the Miami and DC areas, and it's kind of taking off. So happy to see where it goes from now, but that's pretty much it about me.
I have a question. It's not specifically related to basketball, but I'm interested in this because I've been trying to grow my YouTube. What would you say would be the things that like brought you, like, kind of what did you do to grow your YouTube? Like, is there anything, like for me with my YouTube, like what helped me a lot was consistency, for example, like into a schedule, posting a certain amount of videos. What helped you kind of reach out to a bigger audience and build that following up?
Yeah, man, I think just going back to consistency, like you said, is if you're consistently putting out stuff that people want to see and that people can learn from and apply, making everything digestible, and you do it every single week, it's going to catch on. It's the same thing with everything. If you put the work in, put the amount of time, you get in a routine, it's going to be very, very, very valuable to a lot of people. And when it's valuable to a lot of people are going to tune in. So, and they're going to start to kind of religiously watch you in a way. So that's really what I've built that based on.
Interesting stuff. I suck at YouTube, so take that advice.
Like, yo,
My Instagram following is moderate, so it's growing slowly. Last month I gained 111 subscribers. I'm kind of a big deal. I don't know if you know that. I guess for me, like what I do is so niche, and I know a lot of people are interested in jumping, dunking, and stuff. But like basketball just caters to so much of a larger like audience in the population. So it's like I know what I do applies to basketball, but it's limited in its application. And what's funny is like as an S&C coach, I probably would do a really good job with a basketball team, and partially because I've seen what happens at that level, and as an S&C coach, I just am aware of it. And now, have I worked at the Division I level or whatever else? No, but a lot of my friends have, and I wouldn't use the word mentor, but like I talk to those individuals regularly. We correspond a lot, and like I just don't. I guess for me, like I loved basketball, like I liked playing it, but I wasn't necessarily that good at it. And I didn't have the same love for it that I do like performance training. You know, like for me, I love the flashy stuff. Like I wanna dunk on people. I want to high jump 6'6", like because that's like the crowd pleaser stuff. You know what I mean? Like making threes cool, but it's like dunking on someone. Like that's like that's what.
For me, like this is actually a big reason I was really excited for this podcast specifically because like. The phrase I always tell people, basketball was my first love. Like that's the whole reason that I got into professional dunking was because of the basketball first. And like my work ethic for basketball, like that, well, that's where I learned my work ethic, like period. Like I used to practice 3-4 hours every single day growing up. And I honestly just loved it. And then when I turned 16, 17, I kind of dunking like took over, and I just put that same like work ethic and passion to dunking. But like at the end of the day, that's always gonna be my first love, basketball. And like even now, John knows like I can't go too long like without playing it, which is kind of detrimental to a lot of the training I do. But it's crazy, and like it's the fastest growing sport on the planet. You know, it's becoming more international. There's the amount of people that are in it, like it's insane. And for guys that are trying to jump higher, like 70% of the time, they're probably a basketball player. They're a hooper. They want to dunk on people in games. So
here's one I had a question for you, Coleman. What like when you say, or I guess the question, who have you worked with, right? So we know how you started By Any Means Basketball. We know kind of what you do, like you're doing skills training in person and online. You have the packages and stuff like that online, which I think is sweet. I thought about doing one of them just for like a warm up. I don't know if you have a suggestion on that, because I was like, maybe I'll get better at basketball. Like I like basketball, but like I need to get better at it. And I talked yeah. But so like who have you worked under? Like who are the top skills coaches, trainers that you worked under? And then players, like what's who are the top players you worked with, and what were those experiences like?
Right, yeah. So I think in terms of skills training, I think it goes back to I had a great coaching staff in high school. So my coach, Sean McAloon, right now, he's the head coach at IMG now, and just taught me like literally just the ins and outs of literally just how to not only be a better basketball player and how to teach basketball, but also how to incorporate becoming a better man and a better human and a better worker in general in that process. So that kind of got me towards the coaching and teaching side. After that, I was pretty much on my own because going down to University of Miami, like I'm in a new environment. I started teaching just like random high school kids, coaching random high school kids. I mean, in the area, a lot of whom I have great relationships with now. So it was kind of a learning process, like a lot of reading books, just figuring out how to kind of manipulate these interpersonal relationships into becoming a great coach and becoming a great trainer. And a lot of it has just come from just talking to different experts rather than really working in like under them or internships and all this, which I'm looking to have in the future. But a lot of it I've just had to figure it out by myself. So that's where that's come from. But it's kind of given me a unique coaching style too, which is interesting in itself because I had to find it for myself. In terms of players I've worked with, a lot of the players in the Miami area that we work with are some of the top guys in the area. So I think we have these sessions every Sunday. When I say we, I mean I do a lot of my training with my boy Joseph at Value Basketball Skills Training. Go check him out. So we have these sessions called Elevate sessions where we get the top guys in the Miami area to just come out and compete. So they go through like a entire hour of drills, everything's competitive, and then the next hour is just hooping. So it's like open runs, really kind of breeding that competition. And a lot of these guys will be going D1, high major D1. So I had a chance to work with a lot of those guys, as well as some guys who are in college right now. Fairleigh Dickinson, one of my guys I trained last year, plays D1 there. St. Thomas Aquinas, a couple other D1, D2 schools where I've really had a chance to work with these guys. And then a lot of guys online as well. I've just had a chance to consult with them and help them out remotely, as well as, like you mentioned, the online packages and programs and everything we put out there. So it's been kind of cool getting everything started on my own.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, like, who would you say is like the like, if I were to someone to ask me like who's the best athlete you've ever worked with or who's the most talented or whatever, I'd be like, oh, it'd be, Isaiah Rivera, Dan Gross, Jonathan Clark, consulting a little bit for Jordan Kilgannon. Like, those are the pro dunkers that I would list off. And then high jumper wise, I might say whoever it was, like whoever I've like corresponded with. Maybe they asked me a question here or whatever there. I wouldn't say I coached them, but like I'd have that delineation, you know what I mean? Like, people I've actually coached, I would be like, oh, Isaiah for sure. Like, he's the highest jumper I've ever worked, or Jonathan Clark or something. And then like I said, corresponded with, I might say like probably someone that I get most excited to correspond with is like the Danish national team. Like, anyone over there, I just like, because they're freaks of nature. Like, they're some of the best high jumpers in the world, and their training is so robust and incredible. So like I would answer that question that way. But if you were to answer that question, who have you coached and who have you corresponded with? Who would you say, like, who's the best athlete you've coached? And you would say you coached, and then the corresponded with.
Right. So I think the best athlete, it's tough because a lot of them are still like the elite high school level. So I don't want to jinx them going into college and then say like they're the best, and then they end up. I really have a lot of trust in a lot of guys that we coach. The two guys that I've really worked with closely this year is my guy Justin Neely. He plays at Miami High School. Just to give you guys a sense, motherfucker dropped 60, like 30 and 25 in one game, 60 points. Like, it was at least 20 rebounds, 20 assists, some crazy shit like that. But he's definitely a high-level D1 guy. He's a big guard, like very, very fun to work with. And then my guy, his name Carlos Hart, plays at North Miami High School, and he's another D1 guy. And then this past summer, my guy Devin Dunn, he started. I don't know, did he start this year? I don't know. Either way, he's a freshman. Like I said, he plays at Fairleigh Dickinson, and probably one of the hardest workers. So personally, he's one of the most fun players that I've worked with. And then corresponded with, I've had some college. Well, going back to high school, I wasn't even considering that. A lot of my teammates are playing at UVA, Florida Gulf Coast, Maryland, Rhode Island, like a lot of these places. And I've kind of trained them when I was still getting into it. Like, we would be in the gym at the same time. Just like, I'll put them through a workout, whatever. So I don't even really consider that as coaching them. But in terms of corresponding, those guys, and then I've definitely been in contact with some NBA guys who this summer we were planning on linking up and getting some work in, but this may be tough this summer, so that may be delayed. But there are some NBA guys that I've been in contact with. It'd be cool.
So obviously you've been exposed to like a lot of guys that are like with quote unquote like D1 talent, you know what I mean? Yeah. How important, me and John have talked about this before, how important would you say that like athleticism and like physical wise, like how important is that versus just a purely like skill standpoint, like point of view? How big of that play in like reaching the NBA versus D1, like D1, D2, D3, like college basketball and all that?
Right. Yeah, I think at every level there's almost like a prerequisite level of athleticism that you kind of need to have to really just keep up with the speed of the game. Obviously, there's some guys who are just freaks of nature in terms of their skill, and they're under that prerequisite level, but somehow still make it. But in general, there's kind of a prerequisite level, not necessarily off of just numbers of like vertical jump, speed, whatever, but just a prerequisite level of general, like I'm talking overall athleticism that you have to be at to keep up with the physicality and the speed, whether it's D1, D2, D3, that level will kind of go down a little bit. But a lot of guys are just like, oh, athleticism is only a benefit. Like, it's only something that will really like kind of take you to the next level, but it's not something that you need. I would disagree with that, because the more athletic you are, the more high of a ceiling you have, and the easier the game becomes for you. So there's definitely somewhat of a correlation between those things, because everything will become harder when you're under everyone else in terms of athleticism. That's a good question, though.
We talk about that one a lot, and I've, obviously I come from the polar opposite side of what you do, where my sport only athleticism. How fast, how high you jump, how hard you cut, whatever else. Like, not really how hard you cut, because that's not really my sport, but like the output numbers. That's the only thing I care about. Like, what is your output? What are you able to do on a track where everyone's equal, everything's the same? It's just you versus them. There's no teammates, no ball. You can't mask it. It's athletic. What can you show me? What's your motor? What's your chassis? What can you do? What can you do around a track or over a bar? And like, for me, I've always said this. I'm like, look, I was one of the most athletic guys in the state when it just came to purely athletic ability on a basketball. Like, if you took all the basketball players in our state my senior year and you put them on a track or whatever else, like, I would have, if you look at the state meet, for example, just say AA, actually, not even say AAA or whatever the bigger schools are. High jump wise, I was a top 8. Like, I tied 9th through 6th place in high jump. I was going to tie them, and I was shorter than they were or whatever else. Like, I was going to jump just as high as they would, basically. And then you look at, if you were to look at our 400 time or our 200 time or 100 time, take those high jumpers and put them in those events, I'm probably going to beat them in those events. You put us in triple jump, probably going to beat them in those events. I mean, obviously there were probably 10 to 20 guys in the state that would have been, or that played basketball, that probably would have been better than me. And some people would say, well, what if the best basketball players played or did track? And generally speaking, the guys that beat me in high jump did play basketball, and they were the best players on the team. Like we played a school from Pittsburgh or whatever, and this one kid, he was a freak of nature. Like, he was the kid in game that was going to do a reverse and dunk from the foul line. And like, he came out and jumped 6'6" in high jump and like had terrible form and stuff like that. Like, but if you were to compare us on a basketball court, like, it wasn't even close. Like, those kids were going to blow me out of the water on a basketball court. It would not have even been close. Now, playing defense or something like that, running up and down the court, okay, maybe compared to them, but like, or change of direction. The difference was this. I couldn't anticipate what they were going to do with the ball in their hand. That was like one of the biggest differences. I would have no idea what they were going to do. Like, it was like, they could do a step back, they could do a hezzy, they could do like anything, any option they wanted, and I would have the hardest time anticipating it. So like, my athleticism could make up for it a little bit, but generally speaking, they would like catch me off guard, even as reactive as I was, because I couldn't keep up. And then so that was one of the biggest differences. And then like height and their like physicality in terms of like how big they are, like you're 230 and you're 6'6" or 6'8". Like that was like a normal thing for us to see at the high school basketball level where I grew up. Like, we had a lot of areas that were like, D1 like NFL players would come out of our area pretty regularly, either from Aliquippa, Beaver Falls. Like, that's where like Mike Ditka came from, Aliquippa, where I grew up. And like, you have Ty Law came from there, Jonathan Baldwin, Todd Thomas. These guys are guys that played in the NFL, like, and they're playing basketball too. Terrell Pryor, Western Pennsylvania, like, he just had a bunch of physical specimen, but they didn't, where I think they lacked in terms of basketball. Football is bigger in our area, Western Pennsylvania, but basketball, it seemed like, I always wondered, like, why can't they make it in basketball as easily as they can, in football? Because they're just like freaks of nature, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's kind of my 2 cents about it. I always felt like skill work was like, it was how tall you were, how big you were, and then your skill work. That's like generally how important, what I thought was the most important. I don't know what your opinion is on that or what your thoughts are.
No, yeah, I agree. I think there is like anything, there's a level of just max output that you can get. And then there are certain factors that kind of hold you back from realizing that max output. So even if you have, let's say you have like a 45-inch standing vert, if you're not coordinated enough to get to the bucket and do something that allows you to realize that, you're not going to get up in the air as well as someone who is coordinated enough and has played basketball enough to really be familiar with those basketball specific movements, like even turning your body, taking a one step, like coming over from help defense and rising up to try to block someone. People who haven't been playing basketball for all their lives are not going to be familiar with that same kind of movement and library as people who have been playing basketball for all their lives. They're used to playing basketball, and probably their best outputs will be in basketball specific movements. So that's where the skill, not only with the ball, but like you said, anticipatory skill, being able to just literally move in basketball specific patterns really comes into play. And then there's the whole thing with you have to control a ball in your hands the whole time, which is probably the hardest thing to do, and it takes years and years and years to develop. And I think with basketball, a lot of it is just continuous exposure to the skill just over and over and over again. And that's why a lot of basketball players have been playing. A lot of the top basketball players have been playing basketball since they were 2-3 years old, and they just really locked in those basketball specific skills and movement patterns.
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to instinct. Like, for example, when John was saying like you have the prerequisite athleticism, but you couldn't anticipate what they're doing. A lot of that anticipation isn't like when you're in a game, like you're not thinking about what they're gonna do. You're kind of reacting to the moment.
Hey, real quick, just see or Coleman, sorry, not Tucker. There we have a Tucker Ayers too. I was thinking Coleman. Just so you know, with Skype, the way it works is if you say anything, their audio will blurt out. So it's only one person has to talk at a time. I was like, I'm having a hard time hearing you and Isaiah talk at the same time when I'm listening to this. So what were you, Isaiah? He's thumbs up. So wait, Isaiah, you were saying it's an instinct. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So it's like it comes down to instinct. So you were saying how like you had the prerequisite athleticism, but like you couldn't anticipate. Like if you're like defending someone and you're thinking about what they might be doing next, I think that you're already like lost half the battle, because like it comes down to you've defended somebody like for thousands of hours that like it's like, okay, like they might hezzy here. I'm not thinking, oh, if they hezzy, I'm gonna cut them off this way. It's like, no, like they hezzy, so your body just moves, and like it kind of just happens. And like Coleman was saying, it's just from being exposed since you were 2 to defending somebody. Like it just all becomes instinct. And like I think that's why a lot of guys, like you might get a football player, you might put him on the basketball court. Football players, I would argue I don't even think it's an argument. They objectively have higher outputs in terms of vertical and sprinting and all that than hoopers, but you can't put them on a basketball court and have them defend the best players on earth, even though they are the most athletic people on earth. But it's because it's like even something as like defense where it's physical, it's so much of it is cerebral and like instinct like that needs to be just drilled in from a young age.
Yeah. No, I always tell players, the more you think, the more likely you are to fuck up, because once you really get into that kind of conscious like state on the court, you're gonna start trying to get one step ahead, and that's gonna leave you one step behind, like you said, because you're not playing off of instinct, you're not playing off of the instincts that you've been building up for your whole life. So that's when you see players like they'll start thinking in the fourth quarter when it's really coming down to the end of the game, like I have to make this shot. Next thing you know, they're shooting air balls and shooting shots that they would never miss. But it's purely because they're kind of in that conscious state rather than just letting their instincts take over.
Yeah. And that's like so interesting from a motor learning point of view, because you would call that autonomy, right? Like you think about like you ask Isaiah and myself this, what do you think about when you're dunking your best? You don't think about anything. It's like a level, it's like a swagger that you have when you're doing it. Like, it's just like I don't know how else to describe it. There's like a certain level of flow that you have, a certain rhythm that you have. It's thoughtless. It's just like, I'm going to show out. That's your mindset. I'm going to be better than these people. I'm going to do better than these people. I'm going to jump higher than these people. You don't think about anything, you just go and do it in those best case scenarios. Now, is there things that you come back to because it is an output based thing? Of course, like the times I've made windmills and stuff like that, it was more sensation based than it was a cue in my head, when I'm just trying to get an output. And I think Isaiah would probably say the same thing. Like you're not thinking about those things. You think about those things in training sometimes, and then whether it actualizes on the court or on the track or whatever else, you really got to make it clear, concise, and concrete. You think about one word, 2 words, or something like that. You know what I mean? And usually they're not like put your foot at 30 degrees. It's flow, it's rhythm, it's whatever space, whatever the one word is that you need in your head. So like, I guess my question is, when it comes to basketball and skill training and motor, because it's motor learning. I mean, you know that better than anyone else. It's motor learning. How do you set up your sessions so that you're able to maximize the motor learning that these guys are able to acquire? And then how do you actualize that in game settings? Do you tell them, I want you to try to do these things that you were doing in your skill work on the court, or do you just let that happen? Or how are you getting those skills that you practice off a game setting to actualize in a game?
Yeah, no, I think the cool thing about basketball training and SNC just paralleling each other is that a lot of the motor learning is done kind of the same way. And it's really not just these two fields, but you learn motor skills and even non-motor skills in the same way. Like, our brain is one thing. It's not like a basketball brain and like a football brain and a lifting. Like, we're going to learn in the same way. So going back to the question, the way that we set up our sessions is first is assessing them, seeing where they're at. If we have a beginner, we're not going to teach them like the most advanced thing you could possibly do. If we're an advanced player, then we may kind of accelerate the process. But I would say there's a 3-step process, not only in my style of training, but really just overall for motor learning, which is 1, teaching the movement, maybe watching it before we even start, so players can kind of get this sense of like, all right, I see what I'm going for. Even subconsciously, they're kind of imitating it when they first start out. So walk them through it, kind of explain, let's say we're teaching a move, explain the move, the key parts of the move, and then we have them just rep it out, see where they're at with it. Some guys will pick up extremely quickly, especially if they're advanced. Some guys will take months to pick up on a move. But once they start to really get like the key pieces of that move or that skill down, then we'll start to add in like what we call dummy defense, which is basically just like, if we're teaching between the legs and do a pull-up, something simple, I'll be playing fake defense pretty much, like 70% effort, just so they can see, all right, this is when I'm going to do this. This is when I'm going to use this skill. This is what's the most optimal way to use this skill. Once they really get good at that, then we progress them to more reactive stuff. So it's like, all right, if you go between the legs and I cut you off, then you're crossing back. If you go between the legs and I don't cut you off, then you're going and shooting that pull-up that we worked on. So that's like the 3rd reactive level. And when they get to that point, they've learned that motor pattern. Like, that should be ingrained in their mind. So when they get into the game, they shouldn't be thinking about it, because we're going to rep that out so much that it becomes second nature. It's accelerating that process where we've been working on that move for even a couple weeks, but it's just like learning something from when you were 2 years old, like we were talking about, where it becomes instinct. It becomes so ingrained in your mind that you're not thinking about it in game. So once these players get into the game, we're kind of letting like the leash off and just saying, go hoop. Like, I always tell my players, if you start messing up in games, or if you fuck up a move in a game, don't even think about, especially if it's something that you worked on for hours and hours in the gym, don't even think about how you messed it up, because all that's going to do is tell yourself, like, I may not know this move. Even if you're doing it subconsciously, like, your brain's starting to think, damn, I need to start rethinking how to do this. You're going to start making these very small adjustments. Next thing you know, you're not doing it the same way as you were in the workout. So really just taking that leash off of the players in the game is kind of the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things going through my head from a motor learning point of view. And the biggest difference that I see between what I do and what you do is you are adding levels of complexity to motor learning, right? Like, for me, the details matter. Like, you want to talk about details mattering for you? Your foot position by 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees could be make or break you clear that bar. You want to talk about lobs, you want to talk about windmill, 360 between the legs, stuff like that. Like, your approach has to be exactly on every single time, subconscious, but it's so routine. Like, there's no defender. There's no, I mean, it's more routine than basically anything else in sport. Even it's more routine than running routes in football. Like, I mean, it's crazy the repetition that you need to hit those fine details perfectly. And then the flow state that happens when you get into a meet, honestly, it's very similar to what you're describing. And when you talk about motor learning and you talk about decision making and adding decision making into it, that's another level of complexity, which is interesting. Right. that you take it in this, I mean, chunking is what you do to learn new motor skills. It's very similar to what, what we do and what you do. And obviously, I say this pretty often, but it doesn't matter what you can do whenever it doesn't matter how perfectly you do a drill. It matters, can you do the thing you actually want to do? And the best way to learn to do that is to actually do that thing. So I think basketball is interesting in that the degrees of separation, I think, is less so than what you would see in track. In track, you would see an A skip, and you would see that in a high knee run, and then you'd see someone do a build up, a dribble run, and then you'd see them upright sprinting. And, those are very, in my opinion, a bystander might be like, oh, those are really similar, right? But like, honestly, they're not really at all. They're completely different motor patterns. A skip is not even running. A dribble run is not fast. They're entirely different. But what you do, it's basically the analogy that I would give for track is like, it's all running, right? Like it's all running at different speeds. It's all playing the same, or it's doing the same drill. Let's say that it was the, between the leg step back. It's a between the leg step back every time, but now it's different speeds and decision making for that, right? So I think when you talk about motor learning, you guys start with the most specific thing first, and you just tone back the intensity of that, right? From a motor learning point of view, where dunking, it's like you have all these remedial steps to get the output that you want sometimes, because your output is so important and your positions are going to dictate that output. Like jumping 30 inches after a drive might be hard, but there's tons of ways to get that strategy, that movement strategy, or to get that output done. There's tons of movement strategies to get a 30-inch jump done after a between the legs cross and a drive. There's tons of ways to do that. It's not very hard to do. But to get a 45, to get a 48, to get a 50, to get a 51-inch vertical off that, there's like one way, 2, 3 ways to do it. Like there's not a lot of ways to do it. You got to have the same. Basically, everyone picks a very similar. Jumping is more variable than sprinting is. Sprinting, there's one way to run a 9.5. You got to have these ground contact times. You got to have these stride frequencies, these stride lengths. Like there's no way around it. Everyone picks the same strategy to do that. Even all the way down to like a 10.6 or a 10.7, everyone picks they pick the same strategy to get that output, because that output's still crazy. 10.7 is still crazy. 10.7 is equivalent to like a 45. 9.5 is equivalent to like a 60-inch vertical, in my opinion. It's just this world mind-boggling. People don't realize that. So yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about that motor learning and the way that you guys are able to integrate different levels of complexity to it. And for me, it's funny to look back and think about the way that I was coached in basketball, because I did not have a good basketball coach. I did not have someone that fostered mistakes and fostered learning those skills, and then fostered adding a defender and trying to like mimic those. Like, do you think that a lot of high school coaches at the developmental level are just way off base with how they're getting players better? And if the majority of players took the time to do what you guys do, and you, or better yet, if you had a team and you structured your practices this way, that the majority of the players would all reach a higher level than what a lot of the potential that you see right now is?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. At the end of the day, most high school coaches are not really in tune with science and with actually genuinely learning the best ways to learn as a human, and more specifically an athlete. What are the best ways to learn? Most of them kind of get passed down like this same traditional way of teaching. And that's why you see the same drills, the same methods, the same theories recycled through pretty much every high school basketball coach in the country. So I think if they even just taking some of these strategies and learning and kind of catching up on the research, like what are the best ways to actually learn to the human brain? What are the best ways to actually learn? It would work. And I think it just takes effort. It takes a level of research and even trial and error that not many coaches have, because they do have a lot of shit to deal with. Like one player may be just like having a completely like just having a crisis, like about to get kicked out of school. Another player is complaining he's not getting that playing time. So it's tough. They're not really focused on this, but I think taking that extra mile it could be huge for any coach, really. Like you see some of the top college coaches, I'm sure not even many of them are in tune with this because it's not their job. But really getting familiar with it could definitely accelerate some of the skill levels and the way that a lot of these players perform in the game.
Yeah. Do you think well, I guess Isaiah, before I ask this question, what I was going to ask is, do you think that the physical prep, do you think the skill work could be structured better for better physical prep? How do you think the skills training gets in the way actually of that physical prep?
Yeah, I mean, basketball is such a repetition-based game, and just all these sub-max, like just everyday grinding, like Isaiah said, working out for 3-4 hours a day. I'm sure you were not able to realize anywhere near your full athletic potential if you're on the court for 3-4 hours a day. It's just continuous sub-maximal contacts. It's like you're not going to that highest output. You're not moving at your fastest. And it fatigues you. Like, I'm sure any basketball player knows that by the end of a week, they're dead tired. So, and that's without being in the weight room. That's without physical prep and just spending extra time on your body. So it does get in the way in that sense. And I think it could be structured. I just don't think there's enough of a synergy between strength and conditioning coaches and on-court skills coaches. And that's really what I'm shooting to do. That's kind of one of the missions I have, is just talking more, communicating more. Like, maybe you're at the beginning of the off season and you just completely limit dunks. Like, the skills coach is like, all right, look, you're not dunking for the next month or two. Like, we're going to get shots up. We're going to do all the kind of lower intensity stuff, shorter workouts, really let the strength and conditioning coach do his job. And that there's just not there, especially at the high school level. Like, there's some level of communication, I'm sure, but it's mainly like, all right, the guys been on their feet a lot this week. Maybe take it a little bit easy on them, rather than literally structuring like, all right, we're going to do no dunks for a month, then we're going to start progressing up to like 5 dunks a workout for a couple weeks, and then start progressing up and really having that synergy, because I feel like that could take a ton of athletes to the next level. It could help them kind of minimize those effects of basketball that basketball has on just athletic output in general. Because I know personally, I'm on the court so much, training guys, training myself, trying to figure out new stuff, just hooping because I love hooping, that it's personally difficult for me and any other player that wants to increase their athleticism, just because we're on the court so much. And that's a big thing, is just having that synergy. So yes, it definitely could be structured better in a ton of ways.
I almost feel like there could never be like true synergy between the strength, the S&C coach, and then like the skills or the actual head basketball coach. Just because like the priorities always kind of clash with each other. I feel like what needs to happen is that the basketball coach and the skills trainers just need to have an S&C background. Like, they need to have that knowledge of the science. Like, and once that happens, then you would be able to kind of implement those things to the basketball practices and the skill work. Because like, it's hard if you've grown up all your life not ever researching about getting athletic and all that stuff. How are you gonna buy into it randomly when this guy comes in telling you like to not dunk in the practices and not like go as long and like stuff like that? So I think like just the coaches need to be more educated, like in general.
Which is crazy, because that's what you're trying to do. Yeah. And that's what like I love. Like, I know we've talked about it a lot, and like we've been meaning to have this conversation, because it's like you have like a more traditional, like you know about S&C, you know about physiology. We could have conversations that I can't have with other skills trainers. That's the only reason. The reason why I was like, this kid, no, he's gonna take what I do, and he's gonna take what he does on the court, and he's gonna be able to figure out how to put them together, because I honestly, that's not my passion. It's not. I would love to work with an NBA guy. Don't get me wrong. I think I would do a really good job of working with one person, being able to do this. I was talking to Isaiah about this today. I was like, that's my goal. And how I'm going to get there is by making it unanimous, that I can prepare any athlete and make them a freak athlete. I don't care who you are. You could be Steph Curry. You could be Giannis. You could be LeBron. I'm going to make you better and healthier and whatever else. Like, that's how I'm going to prove it, but in my realm. And then hopefully someone gives me a chance. But I think when you look at what you're doing, like you're going to be a cut above the rest. Like, I think you're going to take that information and you're going to make it accessible. That's the biggest difference. Like, yeah, I might be able to do that with one guy. I might be able to communicate, but it's always going to be retroactive. Where I think you're going to be able to be in a situation where whether you're the coach of a team, I don't know if that's your goal. Is your goal ever to coach, or is your goal to be the prep coach, the skill and prep coach? I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like Isaiah's right. You'd have to be the coach of a team in reality to be able to fully impose your will in terms of what you're trying to do in the weight room, on the court, in the skills training and stuff like that. But it is tricky. It's a tricky balance. I mean, you guys are you just said you get 2 hours of work just on the court. Bro, that's more elastic contacts than Isaiah gets in a week, maybe.
Yeah.
How are you gonna balance that out?
Yeah. It's a dead mission at that point. Like it's almost impossible, and the only way to do it is just communicate and really minimize those effects. Like you said, Isaiah, this synergy is kind of hard to have, but I feel like that communication and just them having a background, the skills coaches having a background, could be huge.
Who do you most respect out of skills coaches right now? Like, I follow Pat Dicker. Told me, I like Pat a lot because Pat's also interested in the sports science side of things. I've had this conversation with a ton of smart basketball people that also are very athletic, and so the people I respect mostly, like, I follow Brickley, I follow Jordan Lawley or whatever. I've looked at your stuff, I've looked at Pat's stuff, and for me, I'm most drawn to you and what Pat do because you guys are more willing to accept my side of things, especially you. Pat is interested in it as well, but maybe doesn't have formal education in it. But I see what guys like Jordan Lawley do and what Tyler Ralph does and DJ Sackman and Chris Brickley do. And it just seems like they're so far on the other end of the continuum. Mm-hmm. I honestly, this is going to surprise people. I don't think they're that great. I don't think they're that amazing at what they do. I don't see it, at least from what they post. I think the skills training is awesome. I think it's high level, whatever else. But I don't think they take into consideration half the things that you probably do, and that if I had the knowledge base and skills training that I would like to do. And for me, that puts them 10 years behind anyone else that has any sort of information about being a better athlete. And I don't even think what they do in terms of skill work is that amazing. I don't think it's anything that special. I think they just made a name for themselves, however they did it, maybe marketing themselves. I don't know. That's my opinion. People can hate on me. That's an opinion. It's not fact. Don't take it as fact. You can hate on me all you want. I don't care who hates on me for it, but that's my hot take. Who do you like? Who's your favorite guy? Who do you most respect? Even if you don't want to name names about what you do and don't like, that's fine. But I want your opinion on that.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely an interesting take because personally, I am trying to take into consideration so much more than pretty much any trainer, skills trainer that I've ever come across. So I've been on the court with DJ. Definitely a great basketball mind. So I definitely respect the shit out of his skills training, what he's built up. All the other guys I really haven't been on the court with, so I'm not 100% sure about them. But I'm sure they're great on court. I respect the shit out of them because they're spreading like a very good. They're spreading the ability to work by yourself. Like, they're giving out good content. They're giving out, even if it's not the highest level scientific content like I'm looking to put out, they're giving out ways that you can get better as a basketball player. So I do respect that. Personally, though, I do feel like I'm trying to be something different than them, and I'm trying to kind of go above and beyond what they're doing because I feel like I have the capacity to take into account so many things, and so many things really do go into becoming a better basketball player that
for sure
we're only taking in the on-court stuff that's kind of selling us and our athletes short. Sure. So I respect the shit out of all those guys. I'd love to talk to them, pick their brains, and just be on the court with them. But I think the lane that I'm taking is a little bit different just because I'm trying to take in all the research and be up to date. I'm not trying to be 10 years behind or never trying to be seen 10 years behind because I want to be at the cutting edge of everything because, like Isaiah said at the beginning, basketball it's expanding so quickly. And with that, research is expanding so quickly relating to basketball because there's so much fucking money in basketball right now.
I wish there was that much money in dunking, honestly.
Yeah, not really. But staying at the forefront of kind of the research and just staying up to date with everything is big. So that's definitely what I'm trying to implement into what I do and to my mission.
Yeah, no, I love that. And for me, that's why I think I'm drawn to a lot of your content. You know, I can write physical, basically like my job is turned into always working around and every S&C coach will tell you this. This is why I have this hot take of dunk training is more complex than basketball training. You want to know why? Because no one does basketball training correctly because it's always retroactive. You're always working around what you're doing on the court. I always say that. If you look at the highest level, I showed Isaiah this today because people think I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. But when I was 21, I worked at Athletic Lab, and my job was to create a player monitoring system for a summer prep program for players that were playing soccer and they were training with us. And my job was to go and assess 20 different variables, objective variables, subjective variables, compile it, make an algorithm that spits out percentages importance for each of those variables. Then it pumps out a readiness score for the day, and that's a rolling readiness score based on 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to give you that day's readiness score. It tells you as a whole, this is where this athlete's recovery is, this is where this athlete's readiness is. And to do that, right? Just to do that, okay? That might not even be accurate as a whole. you could probably just ask them how they feel on the day, and that will tell you better off than what my fancy algorithm did. It took all those things in consideration. And then it's like, and then you get to the end of that questionnaire, you get to the end of that player readiness thing, and it's like they're relatively always going to be doing not much because they're always training so hard. They're always doing soccer. They're always doing a ton of running. They're always, or in your case, playing basketball all the time. The soccer players I work with don't even get close to the stuff that the basketball players.
Oh, definitely.
So it's like they don't jump. That soccer players don't jump. They change direction. You just added a whole nother variable in it that like is way more intense, and the outputs are way higher too. So it's like when I'm looking at all those stuff and I'm kind of like assessing the situation as a whole. That's why I'm like, until basketball catches up and we're able to look at each of the outputs and how the players are adapting to each of those, and we're able to correlate or not correlate, we're able to find the relationship. Maybe that is a correlation, but we're able to find that relationship between motor learning and performance and say, look, this is all the motor learning you need to see this performance increase, right? And if you also want to see that increase along with your physical ability, this is how much you need of each of those, sprinkled in to get this performance, and it's periodized. And I just don't see that happening because the game is so variable, and you're always going to be doing what I was doing, where you're just trying to measure everything they're doing and fill in the gaps. Yeah. Like, that's how I view it. I view it like checking boxes. Here's 25 boxes. Well, playing basketball, just check 26 of them. Okay, well, I don't have anything to do. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on it. And I don't know. Like, it's so difficult to get to that point where you can control those variables. I'm sure other strength coaches, other skills coaches have had this opinion. If you talk to people that work in the field at that level, they're going to tell you it's player monitoring. They're going to tell you, we put GPS trackers on them. We put heart rate monitors on them. We look at how many change directions they do, how fast they run those things, and what their heart rate was during that. We look at their nutrition. We look at all those variables, and we just fill in the gaps. That's what they're going to tell you. But is that the best way? I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. I guess maybe that's where you come in. Do you think it's possible to plan all of that together?
Yeah, kind of going off of that, I feel like it will take a lot of control to do that, but I feel like it kind of sucks that the strength coaches are doing all this stuff. They got the heart rate monitors on. They're measuring contacts and practice and stuff. They can do all that and work around it, but they can't change how many contacts there are and how intense these guys are training. And it's almost like if I was a strength coach and I was at the mercy of other coaches who are just pushing these guys through hell in terms of their on-court training, and I'm like, well, shit, now my job is literally just keep these guys healthy.
Yep.
I can't really take them to a next level. I'm just keeping them healthy. That would kind of deter me from wanting to even work with them.
Thanks, bro. Why do you think I'm not an S&C? People ask me this. John, if you're so good, why aren't you coaching anyone? Why aren't you working basketball? Why aren't you working that? Because it sucks. It sucks balls, dude. I'd rather coach track 10 times out of 10 times. Because the sport is S&C basically, right? Like, what can I do to make you a better athlete? At the elite level, at the Division I level, nothing. because I have no control. My job is to go to practice, yell at the players, maybe get them in the weight room, squat and learn how to squat and stuff like that a couple of days a week. You look at what P3 does, bro. All P3 does is measure what they do, and they say, look, you're kind of bad at these things. We're going to give you a couple easy, light, not very intense stuff to do to maybe improve upon those weaknesses. They don't really go in and make this comprehensive program based on what they're doing in the season. You know what I mean? That's not what it is. They take their off season. They got how many weeks do you have in the off season if you're an NBA guy, realistically?
I mean, you probably have 12 good weeks. And that's max.
That's honestly better than I thought. That's better than I thought. But guess what?
That's but the crazy thing about that is that you have 12 good weeks and most of them are getting wasted. And the not wasted as in getting drunk, but they're getting thrown away.
Yeah, no, I got you.
I was making sure I'm not saying all these guys are getting wasted in the most important 12 weeks of there. But anyways, the thing about this is like we were talking about, you have so much time on the court, and a lot of this time on the court is not even valuable. A lot of these guys are training skills that they've already solidified in their game, and they make a very, very, very minimal increase each offseason. But if you take one offseason to really just take, all right, I'm not even going to play basketball for 2 months, the first 2 months of the offseason. I'm taking it off, but maybe what we should be doing anyways, and I'm really just hitting the weight room, focusing on my athleticism, getting healthy, but also just kind of accelerating this process. That could make so much bigger of a change for any of these guys, whether you're at the NBA level, college level, high school level, than just kind of creeping these skills up each year that are really minimally getting worked on.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Always preach that. I've always preached
I was gonna say
that's literally my thing. I feel like any hooper should use the off season to work on their athleticism. Think about, let's say you do have 3 months where you don't have any ties to a basketball team, right? Responsibilities, we have to show up to practice, all that stuff. It's just 3 months. If most players were to just cut basketball off and then do a 3-month program or something like that, or take 1 month, focus on health. Let's say you got tendinopathy. 1 month, focus on getting healthy, getting your knee healthy, and then 2 months of actually getting your athleticism up, your strength, speed, all that, focused on going up, and then do minimal skill work. So you have maintain, you can go shoot every day. You know what I mean? Practice shooting, maybe do some ball handling work every day. And you could even do that as part of your warm up. You'll maintain, and then you'll get way more athletic. And then come basketball season, you're healthier, you're jumping higher, running faster, and you didn't even lose your skills. Because most of these guys, like you said, they're working on skills they've already mastered. You're not gonna lose. Think about, this is an example I gave to John when we talked about this. Think about how many guys overwork and then tear their ACLs.
Yeah.
Guess what? Those same guys are able to come back. What if instead of overworking, you had spent that time in the weight room getting stronger, getting healthier? You would never have torn your ACL. And those guys that go through those freak injuries, they come back and they still have their basketball skills. You know what I mean? It's not like you lose them. You can go a year, worst case scenario, let's say you go a year straight without playing, you can regain it in under a month. Your shot and all that stuff.
It's riding a bike.
Dude, I was just about to ask this question. Do you think it's necessary to hammer away at skills you've already acquired? At all? Is there any point in doing that?
No, I think the big thing for me is we should treat basketball training as a part of periodization. So basketball in itself could be considered to have a residual effect where you're still maintaining that same level of skill, especially when you've been working on it since you were damn near an infant. You've been working on it for so long. You're not going to lose it because you take a 3-month block out of your off season and really maybe do 3 workouts a week. Really just maintain especially for these older guys in the league, once they get up to their late 20s, their skills are there. You're not going to just magically increase your shooting percentage 5%. It doesn't happen. And it's because these skills are already ingrained in them. So why don't we treat that like periodization, where it's all right, we're not going to lose our skills in 3 months. Why not just take these 3 months, maintain the skills, and just really hammer down the weight room, focus on what we need to focus on, to get our bodies right, because at the end of the day, basketball is becoming more and more athletic every single year. So if we're not keeping up with that, that's kind of where it's going. But people, that's just naturally because more athletes are playing basketball. It's not because people are really spending more time in the weight room. Although that is kind of something that's
you have a higher percentage.
It's not the right way. So it's like,
it's like you have a higher percentage of people playing, and within that percentage, you're getting more freaks. Like more
exactly
naturally like being exposed to basketball.
This is it's going through like my mind when you're saying all this is actualizing what you do in the weight room, on the court, working on plyometrics, working on that stuff on the basketball court. So for me, I know this better than anyone else because specificity is king. I didn't play basketball at a high level. I didn't practice the skills at a high level. I didn't practice the skills with a defender at me. So when I got in the game, I didn't have those skills. I wasn't just going to poof them out of thin air. They weren't just going to show up from me playing basketball. No, I had to work at it, acquire a skill and progressively add context where I could put that skill into use. In the same way, when you're looking at output, you're looking at rate coding, you're looking at muscles coordination, muscles turning on and off with different angles of the foot on the ground, different pushes, and pushing that to a higher level, meaning, can I get in and out of these cuts harder? Can I get in and out of these cuts quicker? It doesn't just happen. A depth jump doesn't just equal faster skill work. It's not get stronger and it automatically equals jump higher. That's not how it works. It's not get better at plyos, jump higher. It's do plyos, get stronger, apply that output in your skill work. That's the key. And so for me, it's like, I always have said this, I would rather have way fewer reps, but I want game-like intensity when you do that. You got a new skill you acquired, I don't need to work on it 1,000 times. I want 5 reps where you're pushing max intensity on that, whatever it is, in the context with a defender in front of you. Don't just beat them. How much can you beat them by? How much can you put that foot out? How much can you sell that? How do you teach that? I don't know. That's not my expertise, but like pushing intensity, game-like intensity in those settings, to me, is the most important thing. I want fewer reps with a higher intensity if you're going to be able to actualize that in a game. So I don't know. Again, that's maybe a part of the periodization model. Maybe you work on those things and it's, hey, look, we're only going to have fewer reps of what. I don't know how many skills realistically are also usable for players. I think a lot of players use things that learn skills that they will maybe never use in a game. So it's like, hey, look, what like James Harden's game, realistically, we just looked at his game as one player. What does his game consist of? If you could say three to four things he consistently does that gets him to score points, what would you say they are?
Well, one is just being able to shoot off the dribble, shooting, especially off step backs. Obviously, that's like his signature. 2 is just using timing and so sizing up a defender between cross, and then just exploding out of that. And then after that, pretty much either a floater or passing, throwing into a oop. That's kind of one thing. That's 3 things right there. And then the third thing is just learning how to draw fouls. So, and that's literally, those 4 skills are the vast majority of how he gets his points, his assists, his trips to the free throw line. So I see where I see
what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. If that's an 80 to 90% of your game is that, why aren't you repping those things out? Do 6 reps at max intensity. I want you to time the ball's in your hand. If you're going to the off the dribble step back, what's your percent? How quick can you get in and out of that? Do your move, sell it, whatever with the defender, and get the shot off. How quick can you do that? How much space can you create? And how consistently can you do that with game-like defenders in your face? Like that to me is true specificity. I want game-like specificity in practice. I want the timings to be the same. And I don't need a ton of reps of that. I just need it to be high quality, max high quality. Now, will the thought come into that? Yeah, they're going to screw up at first. Yeah. How are you measuring that? Maybe it's a stopwatch from the time. I don't know how you do it, hypothetically, right? Maybe it's the time the ball starts. If it's from the time he does that step back to the time the ball releases it from his hand, that time goes down by, 1/10 of a second. That's significant. That's very significant, even if it's 1/10 of a second. And then, can you do it with changing environments or changing the sequences, changing what the defenders are doing, and just doing the same things with different contexts and trying to see, can I get this time to drop down? That would almost be an idea that I would have, or that I've always had, is specificity is king. You're training basketball, specificity is king. You want that output that you got in the weight room to do anything on the court. You have to have the specificity of doing it at max intensity or doing it at an intensity that's game like. I don't know what your thought is. That's my thought. That's what I've always said. I don't know if you've had that thought, but I don't even know if that's possible to convince a hooper to do. But
good comparison to that is like when I train dunk.
Oh, go ahead. Say it again. I was going to say, I want to hear what Coleman was about to say to this, and then I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah. All right. So I'll talk just real quick. Oh, no, I was just going to say 100%. Like, I agree that's something we definitely implement in our training. So, like, timing, like you said, we'll set an alarm for like 2 seconds for them to get from the opposite free throw line into a shot. Well, not 2 seconds to that, but however many seconds to get opposite free throw line into that, get the shot off quick before the alarm goes off. We'll put live defenders on. We'll put 3 defenders on them when in the game is going to be 2 defenders. So even kind of taking that and making those situations even more difficult, so when they get in the game, it's going to be even easier. But specificity is something that's insanely underlooked in the realm of basketball training, because most of the stuff that you see is just no defense, slower speeds. So my thing is, if we're getting used to that, when we get in a game, we're not even going to consider that in our brain, like in applying these things. We're just going to consider everything that we've played in games. So I think the biggest thing to me is just putting guys in these situations as much as possible, but also in a way that kind of we're not spending too much time on it. Like you said, like 6 very intense reps is better than 12 half-ass reps, because those reps are going to be not only more productive, but we're going to get less strain on our body from them. So specificity, lower reps, but higher intensity is huge.
Yeah, and you could periodize right there, and it's just that you could start with 12 and half intensity and just build the intensity up.
Exactly.
It's very similar. But what were you going to say, Isaiah?
It reminds me a lot of like training or learning how to do a new dunk. A big thing I do is low rim drills. I'll set a rim at a height that you don't have to jump to practice like your hand speed. And what happens a lot is I've seen it before. It's happened to me, and it happens a lot. I kind of know how to mimic like how it feels in the air more so than other people, just because I put in so many reps like actually dunking. But if you get like a newbie that, let's say they're trying to hit a behind the back dunk, and they've never done that, they've never practiced that motion. I've seen it where guys will practice 100 reps a day of doing that behind the back dunk, and like they get it to where it's automatic, and then they go and try it on an actual 10-foot rim, and like it's like they just completely lost the ability to like use their hands. And it's because they didn't mimic how it feels in the air when they were actually practicing it like on the ground. Because eventually you just kind of like you get into like this dead brain zone where you're just kind of like repping it out half-assed. And it's like you said, I would even say it's a bigger number, like 10 complete focus, maximum effort, maximum speed reps of the skill that you're trying to improve is better than like 100 half-assed reps. So yeah, I think that's really important. And I think the cool thing about that too is like that naturally just tends itself to having shorter skill sessions, and it won't have a bigger overall impact on the body. Like, yeah, you're going intense, but it's few reps, and then compare that to being on the court for 3 hours, and like your body just kind of starts like breaking down. You get small little tweaks here and there, and even just like brain fatigue too, of like spending all that time on the court, and then that's time that you're gonna have more for strength and conditioning at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah, for sure. 1,000%.
Yeah, Coleman, I want to hear your final thoughts about like I guess that topic, and then I'll ask you one last question. That'll be it. What's your final thoughts on that?
I think my final thoughts are just that we need to take a step back and really look at how we're training basketball players, and maybe it should be done in a method or methods that are closer to what we do in the strength and conditioning room, because those are ways that have been studied for years and years, while there aren't many studies on how to learn to step back. So taking some, like we were saying, like periodizing, even skills training, start applying these things, start applying more science, take a step back, reevaluate, and then just taking it from there.
It would be really cool to see a study on basketball, like let's say a step back, like, and then have one group practice, like you said, like 6 high intensity reps, full speed, maximum effort, and then have another group practice like 100 of them or something like that, like on lower intensity,
Right.
and then put them in a game situation, and then see like who can have like the highest percentage of like step backs made and all that stuff. It'd be real cool to see it, especially in terms of volume, because I think one of the toughest things is like how much practice is enough. You know what I mean? Because I think the goal is to minimize how much time you're breaking down your body and then maximize the results, right? So like finding that sweet spot.
Minimum effective dose.
Yeah, baby. I love that. That's S&C
Yes,
101 today. So then my last question was this. How do we, so say my goal right now, let's say I change it. I say, you know, I don't care about high jump anymore. Fuck high jump. I want to be the best basketball player I can be. I'm 26 years old. I know my guy Coleman has the best thing for me. I need to get access to that, and I need to know, what do I do? What's my roadmap? Where do I go? What's your website? What do I start with? How long do I got to spend a day? What's your advice?
Yeah. So first, it starts with assessing yourself. So your goals, where you are. If your goals were to make the NBA right now at 26 years old, having not have a huge basketball background, you might need a little bit more. Like, hit me up, move in to to where I live at, and allow me to really put my effort into it. But if you're, let's say you're someone who just you're either in high school and you really want to take that next step, or you're someone who really just wants to get started on that road towards becoming better basketball. I do have a ton of online programs that are, it's kind of hard to make one size fits all basketball programs, like online remote programs, but we have different programs right now at Home Academy, and we have like small guard program, finishing, floaters, like shooting programs, all that stuff. So you can really assess yourself, see what you need, maybe take advantage of those. Hit me up, follow me for tips. I give out a ton of stuff for free just because I really do believe that we need to change how we're looking at basketball training. And I do want to spread kind of the scientific view of basketball training to as many people as possible worldwide. So
yeah,
just get on board.
Website. I go to your website, By Any Means Basketball. Is that right?
Yeah.
What are you gonna give me, bro? Like my handles are trash. My left hand's terrible. I can't shoot. Where do I start? Where am I at here, bro?
All right. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to the top where it says Virtual Academy. You're gonna click on Ball Control Program.
Okay.
Ball control is probably. I'm not gonna get in this conversation, but ball control, shooting, probably the two most fundamental skills. Click on one of those two. Whatever one. If you want to become a knockdown shooter, click on that. All the workouts are less than $1 a day. It's at least 1-2 months, 5 days a week. Click on whichever one you want to get better at, and as long as you put in that work, I promise you'll see results. Because
I have a question.
I'm ready, bro. I'm YouTubing this.
Yeah.
So in the pro dunking world, obviously there's a lot of freaks that can dunk and all that stuff. How good, like, let's say, take someone like me. If you were to strictly train, let's say I moved to Miami and all that stuff, how high of a basketball level do you think you could get me? Like, if I were to go like, yo, Coleman, I'm focused completely on basketball.
Coleman, hold up, real quick. His RSI is trash, bro. His RSI is doo-doo, terrible, no stiffness.
I mean, all right. How tall are you?
6'2". I looked it up. I am literally the average NBA point guard in terms of wingspan, height, all that stuff. So
that's crazy. I mean,
yeah. And then when I was just to give you more background, I played varsity in high school, and then as a senior, I was nowhere near athletic as I am right now. Really? I was literally just like I would really run back screens and just shoot threes like the entire game. Like that was my role.
So if you're shooting like that and you're way more athletic now,
I haven't practiced shooting since I graduated. I could probably get it back in like a month. I could get my shot back.
So that's where we would start getting back everything, and then just adding stuff into your game to help you get to those shots. And then I think you could be dangerous, bro. I think you could definitely be dangerous.
I've always been curious. If I wonder what happened if I just dropped dunking completely and just focused on basketball. Because I always tell people, I think this is to give a comparison how important skill work is in basketball. I always tell people I could meet my 17-year-old me would destroy me in basketball right now in terms of where I'm at. Just because like you said, shooting is such an important part of basketball.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been curious, or even other pro dunkers. Like, there's other pro dunkers that physically like are way more gifted than me too. Like in terms of, for example, Jordan Sutherland, he's like 6'3", and then his reach is like I'm like right here on his hand. Like he's got like a solid 5 inches of reach on me. Like so, someone like that, like I've always just been curious where you could take him basketball wise.
I think you can be dangerous, bro. Oh shit!
Yeah.
Let me my charger real quick. Let me and then we can finish it.
I think this is maybe the most interesting, scintillating conversation I've had about you in a while, Isaiah. Like this one, I'm really thinking about. I'm like, man, maybe we're taking you to G League, bro. Coleman left, bro. His phone is dead. We'll probably end it on that note, unfortunately, because Coleman he's MIA, bro. He literally checked out. He clocked out. So thanks for listening, guys. That was you heard it here first. Isaiah would be dangerous in the NBA. Coleman said, "No, we're playing. We're not putting his words in his mouth." But thanks for listening, guys. This is maybe my favorite podcast. I always say this, but I think this one really is my favorite podcast I've ever done. Isaiah, I don't know what your opinion is.
It's up there, definitely up there. I mean, I have a soft spot for basketball. Like I've had a soft spot for basketball, so.
I was definitely excited. Hopefully we can get Pat Dickert on here at some point. We can hear his opinions on it and what he thinks. He works with Chinese basketball.
We should have one podcast that's like the basketball roundtable and just get all the like top like basketball
young skills coaches, bro. That would yeah. I think that'd be good. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Make sure you follow By Any Means Basketball.
Like the video. Let's set a goal. How many likes? What's the most liked video we've had so far on your channel?
26 to 28.
26. So let's try to get to 50 likes.
50 likes. 50 likes. That's what we're shooting for. You heard it here first, guys. Try to get to 50 likes. Thanks for listening, guys. Peace out.